back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, May 2nd. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that being said, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today's show. So, we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about T. Higgins, more on him, and some trade speculation that comes along with that. Because him, along with a couple of other receivers, they've been involved in trade rumors, so we're going to get back into T. Higgins, because I know we've spent some time on Brandon Ayuk. You know, we bounced back and forth between those two guys, and now recently they're talking about Deebo Samuel maybe being traded, but we'll see. But we're going to go back to T. Higgins, talk about him, updates on that. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about some NFL broadcasting news. So Jason Kelce is going to be joining Monday Night Countdown this season. Recently retired, and he's making the most of it. You know, he's still got the podcast with his brother, Travis Kelce. Now he's going to be joining ESPN's Monday Night Countdown, so we'll get into that. Also, another thing, too, NFL Today on CBS, they made some changes as well. They parted ways with Boomer Esiason and Phil Simms, and you're going to have now J.J. Watt and Matt Ryan joining the crew on CBS, so I want to get into that as well. So something a little bit different today is some broadcasting stuff, but I wanted to talk about that, give my opinion on it, on those two things. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about Jalen Johnson, him clarifying his comments on Caleb Williams, because I know he made some before the draft, before the Bears made the selection of drafting Caleb Williams, so he wanted to clear the air on that, so I wanted to get into that as well. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about the Patriots and the Giants and possible quarterback battles with those two teams, or at least one of them is going to be more of a quarterback battle. The other, Jacoby Brissett, inviting competition between him and the Patriots' number 3 overall pick, Drake May. So we'll get into that as well. So with that being said, let's get into the first topic, which is talking about T. Higgins and some updates on him. So recently, he's come out and said that he wants Michael Pittman money. That's the contract that he's looking at. Michael Pittman, a receiver that got paid earlier this offseason with the Colts. And T. Higgins wants a contract in that ballpark. Now, I don't know if that's going to end up happening. I mean, at least with the Bengals, it might not happen. Now, the article I was looking at, he never requested to become the highest paid receiver in the NFL, but he wants a deal similar to Pittman's 3-year, $70 million contract. And earlier this offseason, T. Higgins requested a trade, and then later on, he talked about how he loves Cincinnati, he wants to stay there, but according to Adam Schefter, who is reporting that T. Higgins is a little bit disappointed with the lack of talks about a long-term extension. And we'll see if the Bengals end up giving it to him, but odds are I would probably lean more towards they're not going to, and he's going to end up getting traded. And last year was kind of tough for T. Higgins, dealt with some injuries, but overall he's been a very productive receiver for the Bengals. and he's been a big part of their success the last couple of seasons. They got to back-to-back AFC Championship games. They had a Super Bowl appearance. He scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl, although it should have gotten called back because, he threw Jalen Ramsey to the ground, but that's besides the point. He's been a very productive receiver for them. And losing him definitely is going to hurt if that's what's going to end up happening, because you got Joe Burrow, who's already paid. Jamar Chase is going to be paid. And like I say a lot, you're not going to be able to keep everybody. And T. Higgins, it looks like he's going to be the odd man out. And the Bengals, they've made some changes in their backfield. Look what happened with Joe Mixon. They traded him. They brought in Zach Moss. So, yeah, they got to go with cheaper options. And what they ended up doing in their draft, because that was the other thing I wanted to touch upon quickly, is what the Bengals did with their draft. So, their first selection, they took Amarius Mims out of Georgia, offensive tackle. They took Chris Jenkins, a defensive tackle from Michigan. And then this is what could end up being T. Higgins' replacement, and that is Jermaine Burton, third-round pick from Alabama. So their first three picks were from Georgia, Michigan, Alabama. That's not too bad. So I wanted to look at Jermaine Burton's stats, his college stats. And so we go back to... Okay, that didn't do what I wanted it to do. But he could very well be T. Higgins' replacement. And if you were to ask me who do they value more, whether it's T. Higgins or Jamar Chase, probably got to lean Jamar Chase. And again, that's no disrespect to T. Higgins, but I think that's just how it is. They value him as the better player, and they look at T. Higgins as being expendable. At least comparing the two wide receivers. And they can end up moving off of him. Now, is it a mistake? Yeah, but again, it's because of money. That's what it comes down to. And if T. Higgins is here, if T. Higgins is in Cincinnati in 2024, but not beyond that, well, this is an important year for the Bengals. Because this could be their last chance, at least with him. Now, if T. Higgins ends up being traded before the season and he goes somewhere else, are the Bengals in big trouble? No. I don't think so. I mean, they're going to feel the effects of his loss. But I still look at the Bengals as a very good team. If you got Joe Burrow coming back healthy, and you still got Jamar Chase, you still got most of the core there. On defense, you still got most of the guys there. I know some guys left in the secondary, but you still got most of that team there. And if Burrow's healthy, this team could go to the Super Bowl. That's their ceiling, is getting to a Super Bowl. But T. Higgins, yeah, they will feel the effects of that loss. So I wanted to get back into Jermaine Burton's stats. I apologize because I thought it was bringing me to his profile, but and ended up not doing that. So his final season with Alabama, 39 receptions, 798 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns. He actually was with Georgia his first 2 years. 2020, 27 receptions, 440 yards, 3 touchdowns. 2021, 26 receptions, 497 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And then 2022, 40 receptions, 677 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So those are his statistics from college. He's a 6-foot wide receiver, 194 pounds. So, again, they're going to lose Tyler Boyd. He's in free agency. Odds are he's not coming back. T. Higgins, we'll see if he ends up getting traded. So the Bengals needed a replacement. And he might be replacing not just one but 2 wide receivers if they do indeed move off of T. Higgins. But I wanted to get back to, well, let me just get back to the Bengals draft. So, like I said, Amarius Mims, Chris Jenkins, Jermaine Burton, those are their first 3 picks. Then they took another defensive tackle, McKinley Jackson from Texas A&M in the 3rd round. They took 2 tight ends in this draft, which Yeah, you brought in Mike Gesicki, but they might need a long-term. They need a long-term answer at tight end. I don't think Mike Gesicki is that. So maybe one of these two guys, Eric All or Tanner McLaughlin from Arizona. One of these guys could eventually grow into that number one tight end, or they're just there for depth. They also did take a corner in the 5th round. They took Josh Newton from TCU. They took in the defensive end Cedric Johnson from Ole Miss. Then they took another defensive back, also from Ole Miss, Dejon Anthony. And then they took a center in the 7th round, Matt Lee from Miami. So they took some offensive linemen. They took a couple of tight ends. They took a lot of defensive guys, and a receiver. So they addressed some needs. And look, again, I've said it all along. If the Bengals are healthy, they're going to be a very good team. That's going to be a team that will bounce back if Joe Burrow is healthy. Because you go back to last year, Joe Burrow wasn't healthy to start the year. Still dealing with the calf injury for the beginning of the season. And then they really started to get it going. You go back to the Arizona game, Jamar Chase scored 3 touchdowns, and they really started to look like the Bengals. And then they played the 49ers. They beat them by a couple of scores. So they were on a roll. And then Burrow had the wrist injury, and that was it. And Jake Browning played well. Don't get me wrong. But Burrow going down, that marked the end of the season for the Bengals. So 2024... they're going to be a team I look at that they're going to be a bounce-back team if everything goes right. Now, again, injuries happen, but I'm expecting this Bengals squad to be very good. And with T. Higgins, we'll see if he's a part of that, if it's just for this year, and they end up trading him after this season. We'll keep an eye on it. Now, if you're the Bengals, you're hoping that... I mean, I don't think there's really any news on him possibly holding out for a new contract. I mean, he does feel disrespected. Well, at least what I have, he's disappointed, not disrespected. But still, I think he feels some disrespect that the Bengals are not really making it a priority to try to give him a long-term deal. But again, it comes down to money. I think that's really what it is. And teams don't have an infinite number of cap space. That's really what it comes down to. So, and on top of that, you have to pay Jamar Chase, and the Bengals are going to want to do that. I think they're going to prioritize paying Jamar Chase over T. Higgins. That's really what it comes down to. And T. Higgins is going to end up getting his money elsewhere. Now, where would be a good spot for him? I mean, and there's plenty of teams that need receivers. You look at the Bills. They did draft a receiver, but, they traded Stephon Diggs. Now, I don't think the Bengals are going to trade him to the Bills unless the Bills give them a really good deal. But the Bills could be a spot. Listen, I always think of the Giants as being a spot. I know they drafted Malik Neighbors, but you add T. Higgins into the fold, and suddenly your receiving core is even better. And you got a number 1 and a number 2. You got a 1A and a 1B. Even. So I'm campaigning for the Giants to get more receivers, but that's another team I could think of. I think the Cardinals are another team. Because you have Marvin Harrison Jr. now. You got your number 1 wide receiver. But now if you added to T. Higgins, that could be a possibility. Well, I'm just saying that's a team that could also use another receiver. I mean, they're not trading him to the Chiefs. The Chargers, the Chargers are they're not going to trade for him and then pay him. So they got their own issues with their cap. They actually, Tyler Boyd visited them, so it's possible he could sign there. But, I don't know. There's other teams that I could go through, but those are just a few that come to mind. Because at least with, the Cardinals and the Giants, those are in the opposite conference. So if you wanted to move off of him and trade him somewhere where you're not really going to see him, those are two spots. But, I mean, again, that's just two that I could think of off the top of my head. I mean, there's other teams as well, but, I mean, of course, I'm saying the Giants because, again, I'd like the Giants to get another receiver, but, again, they did a good job getting Neighbors, so. But, like I always say, we'll have to wait and see how this all plays out. Again, for the Bengals, you're hoping that you could at least have T. Higgins for 2024. Maybe they trade him before the season starts. I don't know. We'll see. But I think at this point it's kind of inevitable that he's gonna be gone. So we'll see. But let me know what you guys think about the T. Higgins stuff. Do you believe he will be traded? I think yes. I think at some point he is going to be traded. That's how it looks. But again, I could be wrong. So when we come back from our first break of the show, we're going to discuss some broadcasting stuff. Jason Kelce joining Monday Night Countdown, so we'll get into that, as well as a couple things with CBS and the moves that they made as well. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about a couple things, some broadcasting changes. Jason Kelce, he's going to be joining Monday Night Countdown this upcoming season. And we're also going to get into discussing what CBS did, parting ways of Boomer Esiason and Phil Simms, and now bringing in Matt Ryan. Well, Matt Ryan was already with CBS. He was doing games for them last year, but now he's going to be a part of that crew, as well as J.J. Watt, who also made some appearances last year as well. So first with Jason Kelce. So he's making the most of his retirement, okay? He's going to be joining ESPN's Monday Night Countdown this upcoming season. He expressed his excitement of the opportunity on the New Heights podcast that, of course, he does with Travis Kelce, his brother. He described the potential opportunity as a tremendous honor and reminisced about growing up watching ESPN with his brother, Travis Kelce, who plays, of course, for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he just got a pay raise. Now, ESPN declined to comment on Kelce's potential role. At least that was the article I was looking at. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. And, I mean, you kind of figure, I mean, he's joining Monday Night Countdown. So, I mean, he's going to be there in some capacity. Now, is he going to be with them when they go to the games and they're doing pregame? Or is he going to be, elsewhere and they're going to contact him and he's going to do a segment? Like, how is that all going to work? But either way, he's going to be joining Monday Night Countdown. I mean, I would imagine he's going to be there at the game, when they do the Come On Man. Do they still? I'll be honest, lately, because of my schedule, I really I don't watch these pregame shows as much as I used to. I mean, they still do Come On Man, right? I mean, it doesn't hit the same because it's not, Chris Berman and those guys doing it, but yeah, so Jason Kelsey, he's going to be joining Monday Night Countdown in some capacity. I would imagine it's going to be how it is where they're at the games and, breaking down the matchups and all that. So I I imagine that's what it's going to be. But if not, then again, he's going to be there in some capacity. And look, I mean, ESPN, they're trying to, like, you see what they've done with First Take. I mean, they brought over Shannon Sharp, and, they got Christopher Mad Dog Russo also on one day. And then you see, well, also the other thing, too, is them bringing Pat McAfee into the fold and having him simulcast his show on the network. They're trying to bring in big names because, there was a time where, I mean, well, back in the day, it was a star-studded cast. But then things kind of changed over the years, and, ESPN wasn't doing as well. So they needed to, get themselves back on the right track. And they've been bringing in big names. And Jason Kelsey is a big name. And he's a rising star in the broadcasting business. And he's got the podcast with Travis Kelce, of course, and they do a nice job. I pop in from time to time and watch some clips and segments, and also depending on a guest that they have on, maybe I want to hear something that they have to say on their show. And like I said, they do a good job. But I know there's that group of people that aren't that enthusiastic about Jason Kelsey joining Monday Night Countdown, and also what's going on over at CBS as well. Because it's kind of like Jason Kelsey just got this job very easily because of the name, because he's a former player, rather than you're putting in the work to get this opportunity. Now, I think Jason Kelsey has put in the work because I feel like it's not like he doesn't have any experience, broadcasting. Now, again, it's going to be a little different as opposed to doing a podcast. Now you're on a pregame show. But I feel like the podcast puts a lot of work into that. They have guests on. They talk to guests from time to time. So I think he does have experience, and he is putting in the work. Now, yeah, you're getting it immediately, this opportunity immediately after you retire. I understand that. But, and I know that also some people are just tired of hearing about the Kelceys, particularly Travis, because of who he's involved with when you're talking about his relationship status. But I think Jason Kelsey is a smart football mind, and I think he's going to bring something to the table joining Monday Night Countdown. And it's not just because he's a Kelsey. He's one of the best centers of all time. Thankfully, as a Giant fan, don't have to face him anymore. One of the really the only Eagles players I had respect for, honestly. And I did watch his retirement speech, and yeah, it was pretty sad because, he doesn't want to retire, but he had to. So I think Jason Kelsey is going to bring something to the table here. I know there's some people that may not believe that. I'm in the camp of I think he will, because I think he is a smart football mind. And he does have, again, you could call the podcast whatever you want. I think that has to be some experience there. Now, again, New Heights hasn't been around forever, but you got some experience there. So I think he is going to bring something to the table. I think he's going to be good. But I do understand where people are coming from, where it's like, well, there's other people that may have wanted this opportunity, and they've dedicated their whole lives to getting to that point, and you're just giving it to someone that just recently retired. Now, this can apply with CBS as well, because they let go of, they parted ways with Boomer Esiason and Phil Simms. And now Matt Ryan and J.J. Watt are going to be joining Nate Burleson, James Brown, and Bill Cowher. And Boomer Esiason, he's been on NFL Today forever. Since I started watching football. I mean, even before I started watching football. He's been at CBS for years. Same thing with Phil Simms. Now, I feel bad more so for Phil Simms because he used to do games with Jim Nantz. It was him and Jim Nantz. They were calling Super Bowls. They were calling all these big games. And then all of a sudden, Tony Romo retires. CBS pays him, and they remove Phil Simms. They put him on NFL Today, back in the studio. Romo gets the games. Romo's now calling AFC Championship games and Super Bowls, all these big matchups. And he just retired. Had no prior broadcasting experience whatsoever, but they just threw him in. And has Romo done a great job? Yes, but I think people are starting to get a little tired of him too. Again, the way my schedule is and where I'm at when I'm watching games nowadays, I'm not really listening to the commentary. So, when I was at school, we were watching Red Zone the whole time. So we were bouncing back and forth from games, so we're not really watching Tony Romo call a game. But when Romo first broke in, he was great. He was predicting everything, and people loved that. But now I think people are starting to get a little tired of that. But still, Phil Simms was with Jim Nantz. They removed him. They put him on NFL Today, and now he's just out entirely. So I kind of feel bad for him. Because at least with Boomer Esiason, now again, I don't know what Phil Simms is currently doing besides NFL Today. I'd have to look into it. Because I don't know if Boomer Esiason has his radio show. And I did listen to what he had to say about it. And he said the writing was on the wall when they were at the Super Bowl because CBS did the Super Bowl. And he felt like this was going to be it. Because now, this was because their contracts expired. They didn't just get rid of them. Because that's what I thought initially. I thought that they just kicked them out and Matt Ryan and J.J. Watt took over. But their contracts were up and they didn't renew them. So that's what ended up happening there. But Boomer Esiason said that he had a feeling this was going to be it. He didn't really say any. It was more of their decision than it was his. So I think I think both of them, of course, wanted to come back. But I think CBS was like, no, we're going to go in a different direction. So, but Boomer Esiason still has his radio show, and he signed an extension with them. So that's all well and good on that front. But yeah, Boomer Esiason and Phil Simms, they were staples there for a long time at that network, and they just let him go. Not renewing the contract. You're bringing in Matt Ryan, who was in the booth with I think Andrew Catalong and Tiki Barber. I know he was definitely with Tiki. But yeah, that was a 3-man booth there. But yeah, I didn't really listen to a lot of Matt Ryan's commentary. I know from the little clips that I've watched, I don't think he's bad. I don't think him or J.J. Watt are bad. I think that they have stuff to bring to the table. But I do understand why there's people out there that aren't happy about it. Because again, you got former players that they just call it a career, and immediately they get picked up by these networks. And another former player that is pretty well known, going to be a Hall of Famer, the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady. Tom Brady's going to be calling games with Kevin Burkhardt next year on Fox. Now, he does a podcast on Sirius XM, but now you're going to be a color guy in the booth for Fox. How is that going to be? Now, Tom Brady, another brilliant football mind. How is he going to translate to that? I think he's going to be fine. I don't know how great he's going to be. But again, who am I to judge? I'm doing a show in my bedroom talking about this. So who am I to judge that? But again, I know people have their doubts. But again, Tom Brady just retired. Well, first full year, not playing, and he's hinting at, maybe coming back late in the season. So, I don't think it's going to happen. I'll believe it when I see it. But he's going to be calling games next year. So how is that going to be? And he's kicking out another former player in Greg Olsen, who's been doing games with Burkhardt. Greg Olsen's not going to be there. And I like Greg Olsen. I think Greg Olsen does a good job. But it's Tom Brady, so sorry, Greg. And if you remember Burkhardt and Olsen, they weren't the A team at Fox. It was Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Once they left and went to ESPN, that's another thing with ESPN. I forgot to mention them. They got them doing the Monday night games now. More stars. Then Burkhardt and Greg Olsen, they slid up to the A team, and they called the Super Bowl between the Eagles and the Chiefs, the Kelsey Bowl. So, yeah, it's just it's a hard business, and it's a business that I'm trying to get into, and many others are, but yeah, it's tough because you got these media conglomerates that make tough decisions. They let go of guys that put in the work and really worked hard, and they just let them go like that. But you look at it as well, they want to go younger. Now, again, that might not be a good reason, because if you're still doing a good job, it's really about the job that you're putting in. If you're not doing a good job, yeah, that makes sense, but you can't just do it based off of age. But I guess they want something fresh. So, but that's my opinion. Look, where I'm at right now, like I said, I'm not religiously watching these pregame shows like I used to. But I'm in the camp of, yeah, did you really have to make a change? But that's just me. And I understand both sides of it. But I agree with the fact that these players, they just retire. They have no experience, some of them. And these media conglomerates just pick them up. But again, it's because of the names. Jason Kelsey's a name. J.J. Watt's a name. Matt Ryan's a name. These are great players. And we talked about Matt Ryan and him recently retiring and whether he's a Hall of Famer or not. But had some great seasons. Was a solid quarterback. And then you got Tom Brady, of course, who's the greatest of all time. So, yeah, of course you're going to pick these guys up. You want to have them talk about their experiences and break down stuff that goes on in games. You want to hear their perspectives. And look at Peyton Manning and Eli Manning. Now, I know Peyton had a better career. And listen, his second Super Bowl, it was carried by the Broncos defense. But they're so popular with the Manning cast. And people have their issues with that too. But, they love to see, I like to see Peyton break down things. Now, the Manning cast, I want to watch the game. So when Peyton starts doing that, it's like, okay, well, because there are times they'll cut away from the game and you're like, I kind of want to see what's going on in the game over here, Peyton. Sorry. But, yeah, those are two other guys that are broadcasters now. Now, not the traditional way, but in their own way. And they do a great job with that. But it's because you get to see these guys break down plays, and you get their perspectives too. Their names. And those are two guys I grew up watching. So, Peyton's career started, before I was born, but still, I saw a large portion of his career still. But yeah, I went off on this topic a little longer than I expected, but let me know what you guys think about all these moves with these media conglomerates. Jason Kelsey joining Monday Night Countdown, as well as what CBS did. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we are going to talk about the Bears. We'll talk about Jalen Johnson, the cornerback of the Bears, clarifying his comments that he made earlier in the offseason about Caleb Williams. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about Jalen Johnson, the cornerback of the Bears, clarifying comments that he made on Caleb Williams earlier in the offseason. But so I was going through Instagram during the break, and this was posted by Bleacher Report, and apparently the Steelers may have Justin Fields return kicks this year. In the caption, it says, Jalen Warren says Steelers have discussed using Justin Fields on special teams. That's interesting. I don't know how I feel about that, but that's kind of interesting. And what we're going to talk about is Fields' former team, the Bears. But yeah, that's should I use the breaking news feature? I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's not really breaking news. But anyways, so let's get into. I'm sorry if that was just not funny at all. But anyways, so Jalen Johnson, cornerback of the Bears, he's someone that got paid as well this offseason. And he clarifies some comments that he made earlier in the offseason with Caleb Williams before they drafted him. This was before the draft. I think this was, I don't know when exactly this was, but he did talk about how that conversation was taken completely the wrong way. So he's walking back the comments because he talked about how Caleb Williams might need to be humbled when they get to the league. Well, he talks about players in general needing to be humbled when they get into the NFL, and he said that they can't bring that Hollywood stuff into the building. That was an exact quote from him. But he did say that conversation was taken completely the wrong way. Now, this was on the Kay Adams show. He said, people to me just wanted clickbait and didn't even take into consideration the whole context of the conversation, because when we were talking, she had brought up, oh, how do you feel about Caleb Williams if he comes and you guys draft him? He's like, Hollywood? How do you think the Hollywood will come into the locker room? She kept using the word Hollywood. I never said he's Hollywood, he's this, he's that. I don't know the dude. As far as I know, Heisman winner, elite dude from Oklahoma who transferred to USC, that slings the ball. I mean, that's all I know of the kid. So when she's talking about Hollywood, I'm like, well, if he comes in here being Hollywood, we're going to see through that. And then he said, I cleared the air and was like, hey, that wasn't what it was supposed to be. I don't know you. He hit me and was like, hey, I'm a winner. I just want to win. We had that conversation. I'm like, it's all good. Then I talked a little trash about Utah and USC, and it was all good. All right, so, it got squashed pretty quickly. And, I mean, yeah, and the other thing, too, is Caleb Williams wasn't even on the team yet. So, I mean, it's not like you're saying that about your teammate. It's again, the Bears could have threw a curveball at us and drafted somebody else. But we all knew all along that that's what was going to happen. But I know I kept hinting at, hey, that's, you never know. They could take Jaden Daniels. They could take Drake May, J.J. McCarthy. But we all knew that it was going to be Caleb Williams. So now my thoughts on this, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. And it got squashed pretty quickly. And, yeah, I mean, you got a guy that's playing on the West Coast. Now he's coming over to, playing in Chicago, playing in, the frozen, well, no, that's not the frozen tundra. That's Lambeau Field. But still Soldier Field, even though the Bears are probably going to get a new stadium at some point. It's going to be different, but Jalen Johnson did the right thing. He reached out. They cleared the air, and it's all good. And now the Bears, they're focusing on this season, and this could be a very exciting year for the Bears because what they've done this offseason and the players they've added, they're hoping to build off of how they finished the year last year, other than, the loss to they lost a close game to the Packers, and they also lost the game to the Browns that they could have won. But they played better. Now, it's going to be with a new quarterback, and we'll see how Caleb Williams does. And, I mean, I think the Bears have given him the tools to be successful. They've really revamped this offense these past couple of seasons. So I expect Caleb Williams to do well. You trade for Keenan Allen. You signed DeAndre Swift. DJ Moore they got from the Panthers. They also did sign Gerald Everett as well, back up to Cole Kmet. They drafted Rome Odunze, the receiver from Washington. They got a ton of weapons on this team. So there's no reason why the Bears can't go out there and be an explosive offense. This on paper, this offense is going to be explosive. But they got to go out there and show it. And, I kind of agree with Jalen Johnson with what he was saying about how players, that come into the NFL need to be humbled a little bit. They kind of think who they are. And then they have their welcome to the NFL moment. Because every player's had that. Now, I'll never experience that welcome to the NFL moment. And I would not want to, because that would definitely require some violence involved. Taking a big hit or something. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what that welcome to the NFL moment is. Because I'm not in the NFL. But that's what you hear players talk about. Their welcome to the NFL moments, where they go up against players that, they grew up watching, and, if an offensive lineman is, going up against an Aaron Donald or Lawrence Taylor or something, and, they just get bulldozed through and their quarterback ends up getting sacked, or, you're putting out a block and you get laid out. Those are just a few examples. But you do have some players that come into the league, and there's this, they're full of themselves. And again, Caleb Williams coming over from the West Coast. Yeah, there's some Hollywood. And that's why that reporter was using that. And I don't expect Caleb Williams to, just be flawless from the start. There's going to be some growing pains. But I know people have their doubts, because I know, after a game he was crying. His mom was comforting him, and people were, critiquing him on that. And some other things as well. Well, let's see if he has talent. Let's see if his game. I mean, he has talent, but let's see if his game translates to the NFL. And how he and the other thing too is, how does he respond to adversity? Because all players are going to experience some kind of adversity. Everywhere. I mean, Tom Brady experienced it. Peyton Manning experienced. Guys I just talked about. Tom Brady got towards ACL in 2008, first week of the year. He also got suspended. I mean, if you even want to call it that adversity. But, well, How about the comeback against the Super Bowl against the Falcons? That was overcoming adversity. Peyton Manning, his final season, had got plantar fasciitis, and he was put on the shelf, and Brock Osweiler stepped in and was starting games for him, and it looked like Peyton Manning was done. But then Peyton got healthy. He was the backup quarterback, and then the final week of the regular season, the Broncos needed a win to be the 1 seed, and then they benched Osweiler. They put Peyton in, and that changed the complexion of that whole game. And the Broncos ended up winning that game, getting the 1 seed, and they went to the Super Bowl and won it against the Panthers. Everybody's experienced it, whether it's injuries or, being down big in a game. So, Caleb Williams, maybe he has some growing pains. Maybe he's like Jordan Love, where, you're throwing some horrendous picks at the end of the game, and people are looking at you as being a bust, but then all of a sudden you turn it around and you end up finishing with a solid season, and you win a playoff game. Can Caleb Williams do that his first season? I mean, with the Bears and the team that they have right now, they should be in the playoffs. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win the division. I think I look at the Lions and the Packers as the better teams in the division. But I think the Bears could be a team that's in the mix for the playoffs and can make it. I mean, the NFC is not loaded. It's not as loaded as the AFC. The Bears should be able to make it. Their defense played better towards the end of the year. And you added Montez Sweat, who led in sacks on both the Commanders and the Bears last year, which is funny. The Bears are going to be an improved team. They should finish with the winning record. They should. But again, you got a rookie quarterback. He's never played yet, so we got to see how that translates. But you've had guys, rookie quarterbacks, start day one. Andrew Luck comes to mind. They made the playoffs their first season with Andrew Luck, the Colts. So who's to say that the Bears can't do that with Caleb Williams? But like I said, the division's going to be tough. Every team on paper, their rosters are really good. The Vikings, we'll see what happens with J.J. McCarthy. Because I think, it's going to be a quarterback battle, you would imagine, between Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy. I'm curious to see how that plays out. Whether J.J. McCarthy or Sam Darnold's going to start week 1. Are they going to want J.J. McCarthy to sit? Or I guess it just depends on how they perform in camp and preseason. They'll make that decision. But again, I like the rosters of every team in that division. But the Vikings, I would rank them last. I would rank them last. But again, it comes down to the quarterback position. Because right now you got Jared Goff and Jordan Love. And then you got Sam Darnold with the Vikings and J.J. McCarthy. And then you have Caleb Williams with the Bears, who they took with the number 1 overall pick. Well, I'm going to put the Bears ahead of the Vikings. Because in my eyes, you're taking Caleb Williams, you're investing your number 1 overall pick in him. He should be better. He's going to be the next big thing. The Bears are hoping. Now, have the Bears done a great job at developing quarterbacks? Not necessarily. But have they also done a great job at drafting the right quarterback? Well, you go back to Mitchell Trubisky. They moved up to get him, and he wasn't special. Now, did he have a good year? Yeah, in 2018, the Bears were a good team, but that was built more on their defense. But again, Trubisky did have a good year, but that was more on their defense. With Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, those guys, Eddie Jackson. That's why that team was where they were. It's because of the defense. And then you drafted Justin Fields, and the Bears didn't really go anywhere with him. But then they had the golden opportunity to hit the reset button, and that's what they did. They traded Fields, and they drafted Caleb Williams. And I think the Bears are going to be a better team. They should be a better team. They should finish with I think they should finish with the winning record. Maybe 9-10 wins. I think that's their ceiling is 9-10 wins. Which, if that's their ceiling, and I talk about the Packers and the Lions being better. Well, what are the Packers and the Lions going to finish with? That's how loaded this division is going to be. And I think if the Vikings would have kept Kirk Cousins, that's just they're still kind of neck and neck with the Bears. But they unfortunately let him go. And I think they did the right thing, because I talked about before with T. Higgins, it's a money thing. He's coming off of a significant injury. He's getting older. They didn't want to give him that contract. So I don't fault them for that. But you look at this roster, yeah, this team on paper is good. But you don't have, well, they did draft J.J. McCarthy. So we're going to find out if J.J. McCarthy is the guy. But if he's not, it's going to be a problem. Because I like this roster. The weapons, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson. They signed Aaron Jones. The defense played better last year. They did lose Danielle Hunter, which is going to hurt, but I know they signed Jonathan Grenard from Houston and Anthony Van Ginkel from Miami. But, if the quarterback's not right, the Vikings are not going to do anything in 2024. But we'll see. We'll see. But you know what? Back to the original point with Jalen Johnson and Caleb Williams. Look, they're on the same page. They're going to go out there, and I expect this team to, fight for a playoff spot. Because on paper, this team is too good, especially the offensive side, that they're going to put up a lot of points. But you're banking on a guy that hasn't played in the NFL yet. So there's going to be, early on in the season, there could be some growing pains, and then the Bears catch fire later in the year. So, but like I said, I expect the Bears to be good. I expect Caleb Williams to play well. The Bears have given him the tools to be successful. You got DJ Moore on one side, Keenan Allen on another. You drafted Rome Odunze. That is a great trio that they have right there. DeAndre Swift ran the ball well for the Eagles last year. You got Cole Kmet. Like I said, I keep forgetting about Gerald Everett, but you got another decent tight end there. So the Bears, they gave him a lot of weapons. So go out there and show why you're the number one overall pick. And I think he is going to do that. And then on the defensive side of the ball, bringing back Jalen Johnson was huge. You got Montez Sweat there. You paid him. Look, the Bears should be better. They should. So, but let me know what you guys think about Jalen Johnson and his comments on Caleb Williams. Again, what are your thoughts on the Bears and the kind of offseason they had? How do you see them performing next season? So when we come back from our final break of the show, we're going to talk about some quarterback stuff regarding the Giants as well as the Patriots as well. So with that being said, stick around. And we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about a couple of quarterback stuff with the Giants as well as the Patriots. So there could be a couple of quarterback competitions here with these two teams. Now, when it comes to the Giants, they don't have a long-term plan at quarterback at the moment. I don't believe the long-term plan is on the roster. So right now, 2024 is going to be interesting because they talk about Daniel Jones being the guy. But according to Daniel Jeremiah, he said that Drew Lock's got a chance to be the QB1 on this team. And I think he does deserve a chance. Because what is Daniel Jones? I mean, I know he won a playoff game a couple of years ago, but Daniel Jones is coming back from injury. Daniel Jones, before the injury, was not playing well. Now, you could point to the offensive line being ineffective, because the offensive line did get better as the year went on, but of course it was with Daniel Jones not playing. It was with Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor playing quarterback. And, you go back to the team that Drew Lock played for last year, Week 3 against the Seahawks, Daniel Jones got sacked 11 times. Threw a horrendous pick six, but got sacked 11 times. But Daniel Jones did not play well last year, and then he got hurt. He dealt with the neck injury and the torn ACL. And as a Giant fan, I hope he does well. I really do. I hope he proves everybody wrong. He goes out there and he plays really well. He throws 30 touchdown passes, not a lot of interceptions. The rushing touchdowns are there as well. I hope he goes out there and has a great year. But I just don't see it happening. So when you got Daniel Jeremiah believing that Drew Lock has a shot to beat out Daniel Jones as the number one quarterback, I think he deserves that chance. Because Drew Lock did win, a Monday night game against the Eagles last year. That was a big game. I know the Eagles were kind of in a free fall, but still, he won that game. He's been a starter in this league. He's won games before. Now, has he won big? That was probably the biggest game he's ever won, is that one. The Seahawks were still kind of in the thick of it for, playoff spot, and they needed that win, and they got it. Through that touchdown, I think it was, who was it to? Was it to Jackson Smith and Jigba? The game-winning touchdown? And then I think Julian Love picked off Hurts to end the game. So you had a former Giant and now a current Giant making big plays for the Seahawks. But yeah, like I said, I think Drew Lock deserves a shot because Daniel Jones is coming off an injury, and they need. Well, they've done this before with Daniel Jones, where they've kind of pushed him. When Dable first got there, I think they were trying to push Daniel Jones with Tyrod Taylor. Because, Tyrod Taylor was a Dable guy. And, they wanted to see if Daniel Jones really had what it takes to be the starter. And he ended up, beating out that competition, if you really want to call it, in Dable's first year. And, the Giants went out there and had a good season for the first time in a while. Made the playoffs, won a playoff game. So you got to give Daniel Jones credit there. But other than that, what has Daniel Jones done in his career? Other than beat Washington. Hasn't really achieved that much. And now we're going into, this is now his fifth year? Right? 2019, 2020. Well, it's his sixth year now. I mean, this is it. Now, the Giants did pay him. They did. But it was like, at that point, it was, what is the alternative? Who are they going to find that's going to replace Daniel Jones? Because if you go and you draft a rookie quarterback, now, they weren't going to draft, they weren't picking in the top 5 after making the playoffs. So you're not going to find it there. They had to pay Daniel Jones. Now, did they have to pay him what they paid him? No. But he's coming off of his best season statistically, even though the numbers aren't that impressive. Well, the touchdown to interception ratio is not impressive, but the rushing touchdowns were. But that's what they did. And now myself and Giant fans are like, well, maybe you should have paid Barkley instead, prioritize paying him and then working on Daniel Jones. I don't know. But this is last offseason. I think what the Giants did letting go of Barkley, I was fine with it. Because, he's going to cost a lot of money, and the Giants have so many other needs that letting him go, they had to do it. But, and I like what the Giants did with the draft. You don't take a quarterback just to take one. If they really believed in one of these quarterbacks, then you take him. Now, they supposedly were trying to trade up for Drake May, but the Patriots were like, you're going to have to give up a lot. And they were like, well, we're not willing to do what they want. So they took a receiver. And they're like, all right, well, Daniel Jones is our guy. But he might not necessarily be the guy because they could opt to say, all right, well, Drew's impressing us more. He's going to get the starting job. And then you also still have Tommy DeVito as well. But you know what? Yeah, I think Drew Lock does deserve a shot to be the starter here. You know, I don't think... I mean, yeah, you could look at Daniel Jones winning a playoff game and say, yeah, you know, that gives him a leg up on Lock. But other than that, you know, that was 2 years ago. Last year, he didn't play well, and then he got hurt. So he really shouldn't be guaranteed the starting job. And like I said, I hope he bounces back. I hope he proves me wrong and he has a great year. But I just don't see it. I don't see it. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was, I talked about Drake May. Jacoby Brissett. So he talks about a possible quarterback competition between him and Drake May. Said competition brings out the best in us. And he said, that's all out of my control, so I don't really worry about that. This is talking about, he's kind of bounced around. He's gone from team to team since his first stint with the Patriots. He said, I'm excited to have him on the team, meaning Drake May, and the other guys as well that we drafted and picked up. I think it's going to be good. Competition brings out the best in all of us, so I'm excited about that part. And this is what he said. Those things just happen because it's not necessarily for just one specific player. It's for the whole team. He's talking about mentorship. I'm seeking mentorship as well, so it's an ongoing process. It's just being a good teammate. I think that's where it stands, and then everything else plays off of that. And Jacoby Brissett's a quarterback that's won games as well. Has bounced around a lot. Went from the Patriots to the Colts, the Dolphins, the Browns, the Commanders. Now he's back with the Patriots. I think I named everybody that he was with. He's been with a lot of teams. And he's one of the better backup quarterbacks in the NFL as well. And I think having a veteran like him that's familiar with the Patriots to kind of bring Drake May along, I know it's kind of cliche, but yeah, I think that's good to have that. And the Patriots took Drake May with the number 3 overall pick, so I would imagine he's going to start week 1. But Jacoby Brissett's there to, like I said, kind of bring him along, be a mentor to him. But Jacoby Brissett's saying, listen, I'm going to compete and, try to show that I could be the starter, at least for now. And then you hand it off to Drake May at some point later on. So, but I think it's all good things. Jacoby Brissett's embracing that, and he's going to be fine with whatever role he's put in. So at least that's what it seems. And I think he kind of knew that. He knew that what the Patriots were going to do. Like, he wasn't going back to the Patriots to be their starter. Now, he might play, but he's not the long-term answer. And he knows that. I'm pretty sure. So, but I think having a veteran like him there to kind of bring along the young quarterback and kind of guide him, if he goes through his struggles as well. We talk about Caleb Williams in the last segment. Drake May's going to have that too. I don't know how good Drake May is going to be. Now, when it comes to the Bears gave Caleb Williams a lot to be successful. The Patriots, it's a work in progress. They got some work to do. They did draft a receiver. They did bring back Kendrick Bourne, who's coming off of an injury last year. Their offense is a bit lackluster compared to the Bears. So there's definitely going to be some growing pains for Drake May and the Patriots. But the Patriots hope they have their guy for the next 15 years. And like I said, having a veteran quarterback like Jacoby Brissett there is good to have. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, just a couple things to touch upon with these two teams. But, yeah, so I ran a little bit past 11:30 or 11:30 Eastern time. I did have a lot to say today. So that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out the other shows as well. Get perspectives on different things. Basketball, baseball, sports in general, wrestling. Don't forget about wrestling. We got it all, or mostly everything. And like I said, more new faces will be on the way as well. Also, I forgot to add soccer as well. Soccer podcast as well. That'll be on the way. You start seeing that soon. But, yeah, just make sure to check out those shows. And, so like I said, thank you guys for tuning in. And, yeah, that is all the time that we have for today. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet.